You ever notice how silence feels louder when someone's lying? My name's Ethan, and for most of my adult life, I believe marriage was simple. Show up, do your part, love with everything you've got, and trust that it'll all work out. That's what I did with Riley. We met in college. She was the one with the wild laugh, the reckless plans, and a way of making everything feel urgent and alive. I was the opposite, calm, predictable, and loyal to a fault. That contrast drew us together fast. And when I proposed after 2 years, she said yes before I even finished the question. At first, life with her was electric. We had a little condo in Seattle, nothing big, but it was ours. I worked in logistics for a supply chain company. She was in advertising. Deadlines, coffee runs, late nights, but we always found our way back to each other. Until we didn't. The change wasn't sudden. It was a slow erosion. A missed dinner here. A forgotten text there. Then came the secrets, at least the ones she thought I didn't notice. She started locking her phone, not just when she was at work or out with friends, but at home, with me. Riley wasn't careless. She was deliberate. That made it worse. She said she was working late. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. So I did for a while. But then I saw it. One Tuesday night, I came home early. Her car was parked outside, lights off, music low. I opened the door and walked in and saw her on the couch, phone in hand, whispering. She jumped when she saw me. "Work call," she said quickly. That's when I knew. She never whispered on work calls. I didn't say anything. I went upstairs, shut the door, and sat on the edge of our bed for 20 minutes just listening to my own breathing. The next morning, I checked the phone bill. That number she called? It wasn't work. It was the same number she'd been texting at 11:43 p.m., 3 nights in a row. Still, I didn't confront her. I needed more. So I waited. 2 weeks later, I followed her after she said she was meeting a client. I parked a block away and watched from across the street. She wasn't meeting a client. She met our men. Tall, younger, leather jacket. They hugged like they were more than friends. He kissed her cheek. She laughed. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I just felt cold. That night, she came home, tossed her keys in the bowl, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Long day." I just smiled and said, "Yeah, I bet." From that point on, I became someone else, someone quieter, someone who could lie as well as she could. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to understand. I needed to know why. And then, a month later, it happened. We were in the kitchen. She was making coffee. I leaned against the counter. I looked her dead in the eye and said just one word. "What?" She froze. She didn't ask why what. She didn't play dumb. She didn't blink. Instead, she put the coffee pot down, walked toward me, and said, "You don't get to ask me that." I repeated it, softer this time. "What?" That was when she snapped. She screamed, said things like, "You never saw me. You stopped listening. You're boring." Words that hit like punches, each one designed to wound. Then she reached for her left hand, yanked the wedding ring off her finger, and threw it. It hit me in the chest, fell to the floor, rolled under the table. She stood there, breathing heavy, eyes full of tears that never fell. "I'm done," she said. "You don't love me. You love your idea of me." And then she left. Just like that. No suitcase. No explanation. No apology. Only the sound of the front door slamming behind her. I didn't chase after her. I didn't say a word. I walked over, picked up the ring, and sat at the table where she used to drink her morning tea. That night, I didn't cry. I just sat there, wondering how long she'd been gone before I finally noticed. The morning after Riley left, the house didn't feel empty. It felt hollow. Like someone had scooped out everything that once made it a home and left behind only shadows. I called in sick to work, sat on the floor in the hallway where she used to leave her shoes. I stared at the front door, half expecting it to swing open again, for her to say it was all some mistake. A fight, a phase, but nothing happened. Instead, the silence dragged on. The longer it did, the clearer it became. She wasn't coming back. By day 3, I started functioning again. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. You can't sit in the dark forever. Not when you know you've been lied to. That's when the quiet anger set in. I started piecing together her patterns. I reviewed bank statements, mileage on her car, location data from shared apps she forgot to disconnect. I knew it sounded obsessive, maybe even desperate, But this wasn't about winning her back. This was about the truth. I wasn't going to be the fool she walked away from without consequence. One evening, I noticed a $2,300 debit from our joint account, labeled vaguely as Deposit Avalon Management. I didn't recognize the name at first, but a quick search told me everything I needed to know. Avalon Lofts, a high-end apartment complex just outside the city. I called, used her maiden name, pretended to be her assistant, confirming the lease details. The woman on the phone, overly helpful, told me the move-in date was 2 days after she threw the ring at me. It was planned, thought out. She hadn't left in a moment of passion. She had a backup plan, a backup life. The betrayal didn't even sting anymore. It just made me feel numb. That weekend, I drove to Avalon Lofts. I didn't expect her to be there. I just needed to see it for myself. I parked down the block, threw on a hoodie, and walked slowly along the sidewalk. From the street, you could see into some of the windows. I scanned the rows until I found hers. Unit 304. There she was. Through the glass balcony, I saw her. Sitting on the couch, legs tucked under her, wine in hand. Not crying, not heartbroken, just relaxed. Then he walked into view. Same man from before. The leather jacket. He sat next to her. She laughed again. And then he kissed her. It wasn't new. Wasn't hesitant. It was familiar. They'd been together a long time. Longer than I wanted to believe. She traded a decade of marriage for that couch, that man, that cheap bottle of wine, and freedom she never even asked me for. I turned around and walked back to my car. That night, I boxed up the photo albums. Every vacation, every wedding picture, every frame she smiled in. I didn't throw them out. I wasn't there yet. But I couldn't bear to see them anymore. A week passed. Then another. People at work started asking where Riley was. I gave vague answers. She's with family. Taking some time. No one needed to know the truth. Not yet. But inside, something was shifting. I wasn't sad anymore. I was preparing. Not for revenge. I didn't want to hurt her the way she hurt me. No. I wanted her to feel what it meant to destroy something pure. To walk away like it was nothing. To build a lie, thinking I'd never find the truth. And I had just a plan for it. Because you see, there was one thing Riley forgot when she ran off to her new life. She left the house in my name. The joint savings. The investments. Everything we'd built, still tied to me. And soon, she'd realize just how much that meant. 3 weeks. That's how long it had been since Riley left. Since the ring hit the floor. Since she walked out and never looked back. In those 3 weeks, I learned how to function without her. I stopped checking the front door. I stopped reaching for my phone every time it buzzed, hoping it would be her. But I hadn't stopped planning. This wasn't about punishing her. It was about finally speaking. About being heard. About saying the words I'd swallowed for years. Thinking love meant silence. Thinking love meant forgiveness, even when it didn't feel fair. I wrote her a letter. Not a rage-filled rant. Not a dramatic monologue. Just the truth. For pages. Typed. Plain white paper. No signature. No begging. And I had it delivered. Not to her mailbox, but slipped under her apartment door. I knew she'd read it. Riley was curious to a fault. She couldn't ignore mystery. That was always her weakness. The letter started simple. You didn't destroy me. You set me free. I told her everything I'd seen. The night I followed her. The messages she thought she deleted. The quiet ways I watched our marriage unravel while pretending I didn't notice. I wrote about the nights I sat up alone while she was working late. The dinner reservations she never showed up for. The anniversary I spent at home with takeout because she forgot. I didn't accuse her of being evil. I told her I understood. I wrote that maybe I'd failed her too. That maybe I became too predictable, too stable, too safe. That maybe she needed chaos, and I couldn't give her that. But I also told her the truth she didn't want to hear. You broke something that was never meant to be fixed by someone else. You walked out with the illusion that love is disposable. It's not. You are. I told her about the house. That I'd begun paperwork to sell it. That I was moving to Colorado. Fresh start. New role. A position I'd turned down years ago for her, but had now accepted. I told her I'd leave everything behind, except the memories. Those she could keep. At the end, I added a single line. I hope he's worth it. No name. No threats. No trace of bitterness. Just honesty. I don't know what I expected when I dropped the envelope off. Maybe nothing. Maybe I just want to bleed it out on paper and let her live with it. But then, 2 nights later, she called. First time in weeks. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Her voice was shaky. Quiet. She said, I read your letter. I didn't know you saw everything. I didn't know how far gone we were. And then she whispered the part one didn't expect. I think I made a mistake. I listened to that message 10 times. Not because I wanted her back. Because for the first time, I heard the truth behind her voice. She wasn't calling because she missed me. She missed who I was to her. Her safety net. Her fallback. But I wasn't that man anymore. I was someone different now. Someone who learned the difference between being loyal and being walked on. Still, I replied with a text. One word. Thank you. That was it. No opening. No invitation. Just closure. Or so I thought. The next morning, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find her standing there. Hair messy. No makeup. Like the Riley I hadn't seen since we were kids in love. She held the letter in one hand and her engagement ring in the other. I want to talk, she said. I didn't move. Didn't answer. I just looked her in the eye and asked, why now? She opened her mouth, but no words came. Just silence. That silence this time spoke volumes. And right there, standing on the porch where we once dreamed of raising kids, I realized something. You can forgive someone and still never let them back in. After Riley showed up at my door, everything inside me shifted. She didn't stay long. I didn't invite her in. She stood outside with the same look she had the day she threw the ring. Only this time, her eyes weren't burning with rage. They were hollow, like someone who had finally seen the cost of what they'd done. She left after I asked her, why now, muttering something about needing time. I didn't ask for clarification. I didn't need it. But I also knew this wasn't over. People like Riley don't just walk away once they start to regret. They reach for something to hold on to. And I had been her constant for too long. The following weekend, I went to a hardware store outside the city. New tools, boxes, things to prep for the move to Colorado. I had just come out with a cart full of supplies when I saw him. The guy from the balcony. The one she left me for. He was standing near a pickup truck, fumbling with a set of lumber straps. He hadn't seen me. At first, I thought of turning away, walking past like I didn't recognize him. But something in me paused. This wasn't about confrontation. It was about curiosity. So I walked up. He looked up when I was a few feet away. He stiffened. Hey, I said calmly. Look, man, I don't want any trouble, he replied. I raised my hand. Neither do I. He blinked, surprised. I'm not here to fight you, I added. I'm not even angry at you. Then what do you want? The truth. He hesitated, eyes scanning my face, probably wondering if this was a trap. You already know, don't you? He said. Inoshelit. I know you were with her when she said she was with me. I know a lot of things. What I don't know is why. He leaned back against his truck, sighing heavily. She told me you were distant, controlling, that she felt invisible in your house. I almost laughed. Did she tell you how I carried her when she got sick? That I skipped promotions to be home more? That I paid for her mom's medical bills and never told a soul? He didn't answer. That's what I thought, I muttered. Then he said something that changed everything. She didn't tell me she was married. Not until 3 months in. My stomach tightened. I found out when I saw your picture in her wallet, he continued. She said she was planning to leave you. That was over in every way but paperwork. And you believed her? He nodded, but slowly. I did. Until the night she broke down crying and said she wished she could be 2 people. One for you and one for me. That sentence hit me like a freight train. Because it told me everything I needed to know. She didn't just cheat because she fell for someone else. She cheated because she couldn't face herself. Because she wanted to live 2 truths. And when she couldn't, she burned the one she thought would hurt less. Why are you telling me this? I asked. He shrugged. Because I walked away too. A week ago. That part one hadn't expected. She was still lying. Even after she left you. She told me she wanted a future with me. But every time I made plans, she backed out. One night, I said, either you're in this or you're not, and she froze. She said she needed space. I looked at him and saw something familiar. Not pity, not guilt, but quiet regret. You loved her? I asked. He nodded once. Or I thought I did, until I realized she loved the way I made her feel, not me. I didn't say anything after that. We stood there, two men, connected by the same woman, in the middle of a cracked parking lot surrounded by hardware and old truths. He offered a half-hearted smile and said, "Good luck in Colorado." "You too," I replied. "Whatever's next." As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror and thought about how strange it was, how you could end up having the most honest conversation about your wife with the man she betrayed you for. It didn't feel like justice. It felt like clarity, and sometimes that's enough. But I also knew one thing. Riley wasn't done, and the next time we spoke, it wouldn't be about closure. It would be about consequences. Riley always thought she was 2 steps ahead. That was her pattern: create a world of half-truths, move the pieces quietly, and make sure she looked clean when everything fell apart. But one thing she never counted on? The details. She was careless with them. I had just finished packing up the office when I saw it. An email pinged through on our old shared cloud account. She never disconnected her personal inbox. Maybe she forgot. Maybe she didn't think I'd still check. Either way, it showed up, and I clicked. It wasn't addressed to me. It was sent to her lawyer. Subject line: urgent update before he finalizes the sale. I didn't breathe for a second. Inside, it detailed her attempt to delay the sale of our house. Not because she wanted it, but because she didn't want me to have it either. She told her lawyer that if I sold the house now, he'll walk away clean, and I'll look like the villain. Her exact words. She also asked if there was a legal way to claim more of our joint assets since, in her words, he hasn't filed anything formal yet and still uses our marriage accounts. That one hit like a slap. She had been planning her exit long before she threw that ring at me. But now, even after everything, she was trying to rewrite the ending, trying to make me the one who came out looking bitter or reckless. I should have expected it, but that didn't make it easier to stomach. I called the real estate agent that night and asked him to rush the sale. "Cash buyer only," I said. "I don't care if I make less. I just want it done." He agreed. Then, for the first time in months, I did something I hadn't done since Riley left. I met someone for dinner. Her name was Elena, a friend from work. Nothing romantic, just a meal between 2 people who had seen hard days and carried quiet scars. We talked. We laughed a little. And somewhere between the second glass of wine and the silence that followed, I realized I didn't need to be angry anymore. I didn't need to fight Riley for closure. She had given me all the closure I needed with that one careless email. But I wasn't going to let it end without confronting the truth one last time. So I called her. She picked up after 3 rings. "I know about the email," I said. There was a pause. Then, softly, "You weren't supposed to see that." "No," I replied, "but I'm glad I did." She started talking, rambling about how things got messy, how she didn't mean to hurt me, how she thought I'd moved on. "You thought wrong," I said. "I didn't move on. I healed." "That's different." More silence. Then I told her what she needed to hear, but probably didn't want to. "You're not the villain, Riley. You're not evil. You're just someone who made a choice and couldn't live with the weight of it. So you try to shift it onto me. But I'm not carrying it anymore." She asked if we could meet one last time. "Just to talk," she said. And against my better judgment, I said yes. Not for her. For me. To finally say out loud what I had kept inside all this time. We agreed to meet at the old lake where we used to take walks when life still felt innocent. She arrived late. Same perfume. Different eyes. Tired. Worn. And she didn't come alone. She had the ring. The same one she'd thrown at me weeks ago. The one that clattered to the floor like a shot fired in silence. She held it out. "I don't want to be this person," she whispered. "You already were," I replied. "But maybe you don't have to stay that way." She nodded, tears falling now. Real ones, not the kind that hide behind guilt. Then I handed her a letter. The last one. Inside were all the papers. The finalized sale. The closed accounts. The confirmation of the divorce filing. My move date. Everything. "This is it," I said. "There's nothing left for either of us to undo." And for the first time, she didn't fight it. She hugged me. Not like a wife. Not like a lover. Like someone saying goodbye to a part of herself. Then she whispered the words I never thought I'd hear. "I'm sorry. Not just for what she did, but for what we lost. What she threw away. What I carried long after I should have let it go." I left her standing by the lake, holding the ring. The same place we once promised each other forever was now the place where we accepted it wasn't meant to be. The move to Colorado happened fast. The house sold in 3 days. I packed light, only what mattered. Left behind the furniture Riley picked, the curtains she loved, the dinnerware we never really used. It all felt like echoes from a life that had already died. I wasn't dragging ghosts into my next chapter. The mountains greeted me with cold air and quiet mornings. Peaceful, isolated in the best way. I rented a small cabin just outside Fort Collins. Close enough to town, far enough from people. I needed space, not to run from the past, but to build something new without its weight crushing me. I thought of Riley less often, and when I did, it wasn't with anger anymore. It was like remembering a dream that used to mean something, but didn't anymore. Then, one rainy afternoon it came. A letter. Handwritten. No return address. I opened it with caution. Inside were just a few lines. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I left him. Not for you. For me. I've started therapy. I'm trying to understand why I became the kind of woman who could do what I did. I know it's late, but I wanted you to have something real before the end. Riley. There was no phone number. No plea. Just words. For once, her truth wasn't a weapon. It was a wound she was finally willing to face. I sat with it for a long time. Not because it changed anything, but because it mattered that she had finally said it. Redemption doesn't always look like reunion. Sometimes it looks like silence that no longer hurts. Like a wound that doesn't reopen when touched. Like peace with what can't be fixed. A month later, I got promoted at work. I started seeing Elena more regularly. Still slowly, still cautiously. Nothing serious. Just real. No secrets. No half-lived lives. And then, one morning, I drove into town for coffee and saw her. Riley. She was crossing the street with a scarf wrapped around her neck, umbrella in hand, eyes cast down. She didn't see me. I could have honked. I could have rolled down the window. I could have said something, but I didn't. Because what would I say? We were strangers now. People with a shared past and separate futures. And that was okay. I drove on. The light turned green. And as I turned the corner, something inside me finally unclenched. She had tried to rewrite our ending with silence, secrets, and half-truths. But in the end, the truth came out. Her truth. My truth. The life we ruined and the redemption we earned. Not together, but apart. That night, I walked out onto my porch and stared at the stars. The cold bit into my skin. The wind howled through the trees. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel broken. I felt free.